Towson has joined this effort powered by Publix, and we've been put in a group of 14 other institutions, and we'll be getting together over the next 5 years periodically studying student success. So Maggie, Vice Provost Maggie Wrights, and I have been to the initial meetings on this project, and in our cohort, or our cluster of 14 institutions, Towson's student success metrics are the second from the top. So we're really doing quite well. We're happy with that. What are those metrics? Well, our first-time, first-year students who attend Towson come back the second year at a rate of 85% retention rate. And those students graduate within 6 years at a 73% rate. So these are good numbers. But even better than that, the Pell eligible students from our first-time, first-year students are retained and graduate at identical numbers. And that's not the case at many, many places around the country. Typically, Pell eligible students are retained at a lower rate and graduate at lower rates. Our Pell eligible students are the same. Our metrics for African American students are even better. 91% come back for their second year, and 77% graduate in 6 years. So our African American students are retained and graduate at higher rates than the average. A plausible explanation? We have support systems that we've worked on for many years, like the SAGE program, TOPS, Towson Opportunities in STEM, attention to residential learning communities, attention to just-in-time advising. Great stuff. But these numbers are for our native students, our first-time, full-time students. On the other hand, half of the students who graduate from Towson started at another institution and transferred here. So how do we do with them? Well, first to second year retention, 83%. Not really distinguishable from the first-time full-times. Within 2 years, 70% of those transfer students graduate, and within 4 years, 74% of them graduate. So those are pretty good numbers. The 6-year graduation rate for first-time full-time was 73. The 2 to 4 year graduation rate for transfer, 70 to 74. Pretty good. So far, so good. But only 22% of Pell recipients graduate within 2 years. Not 70%, the average for transfer students, but only 22%. And only 66% of Pell eligible students who transferred graduate in 4 years. African American students, only 16% graduate within 2 years after transferring to Towson, and only 58% graduate within 4 years. So while we celebrate the lack of equity gaps for our first-time, full-time students, these gaps suddenly appear when we start to look at the data for transfer students. The data suggests that our full-time, first-time students and transfer students maybe have quite different experiences. Is that okay? Maybe it's to be expected. Should we try to study this and understand those differences? Well, I think so. And beginning down that path is one outcome that I hope we can point to at the conclusion of today's conference. I'd like to share that my colleague over at UMBC, Bill LaCourse, who's the Dean of Science and Mathematics, once was speaking about transfer students at UMBC in a study that they had done. And the anecdote he tells is that the first thing they learned by holding focus groups with transfer students was that they don't like being called transfer students. They wanted to be called UMBC students. And I'm guessing that our transfer students want to be called Towson students. So I was going to put a big jar up here on the front table and challenge everyone today to not say transfer student. And each time you say it, put a quarter in the jar. But I forgot my jar. But if we can think about that anyway, how do we make sure that a transfer student immediately identifies as a Towson student and starts to have the experiences and the support systems that lead to high success rates and closing equity gaps? That would be great. So I'm really pleased now to be able to introduce our keynote speaker. And this is the highlight of our January teaching conference every year. I had the pleasure of meeting Belle Whelan last night for dinner, and must say that I'm excited to hear what she has to say, because at dinner she is an engaging, extremely pleasant, extremely admirable person that I now will call colleague. You can read about Dr. Whelan in the bulletin. I'm not going to read everything. She serves as the president of the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. That's SACS. And when I was at Georgia State University, SACS was our accrediting agency. Middle States is the accrediting agency here, but SACS is responsible for accrediting higher education all the way from Virginia to Florida over to Texas, right? Her bachelor's degree from Trinity with a double major in psychology and sociology, a master's from LSU in developmental educational psychology, and a doctoral degree from the University of Texas at Austin in educational administration. A very, very impressive vita. She has served as a president of a college twice. And I will just point out that I think the most significant thing about that is that Central Virginia Community College named her President Emerita. That means that they liked her and they want to remember her. And I think that's very cool. So I'd like to welcome to the podium Dr. Belle Whelan.